Hello, everybody. Welcome to another low effort stream. My name is Allison Taman, and today I'm going to go, I guess, into one of my more classic subject areas, which is feminism. I was tooling around on Twitter when I found, or was this particular tweet came to my attention. It is from Emma Arnold, and or I am a road trip. Okay, well, whatever. Emma Arnold, and she has something to say about comics podcasts and the comics artists that are against censorship. Once I was on a podcast with several quote unquote fuck censorship comics. You were on a podcast with several fuck censorship comics. Not comic artists, not comic authors, just comics. Say shit paper. Again, never mind. We know what she means. And the topic was consent. I was the only woman, and they kept bringing up examples from their own lives. According to you, I raped that girl. Me, yep, you did. The episode never aired because of liability concerns. Now, my first question, which was never answered, was what were the particulars of the incidents in which these guys said that they, or so-called confessed to rape? Because if it was a situation where she consented at the time and then later didn't consent, or in this case, if we're talking about comics professionals, that Emma is saying that their public presence, their media presence, their ability to command attention, their social clout, caused the women to not be able to give legitimate consent to them, because that causes pressure, and it delegitimizes any possible consent. If you're a president, if you have a public following, if you're a big YouTuber and you have sex with someone, they can't possibly consent to you because of the social influence that you have, that kind of thing. If it was an incident like that, then I can understand why they didn't think that was rape. And probably it really wasn't, except in your particular framework. But as a feminist, you likely consider a lot more things rape than the law does or the average human being. For example, there is at least one feminist who is starting to consider a woman being biologically attracted to a man to be an instance of questionable consent, because she's being compelled by her hormones to consent to him. And that was a feminist who wrote about the mystery method, in which mystery encourages men to engage in behaviors that elicit sexual interest in men or women and their partners as potentially problematic. And not even negative behaviors. Just, for example, if a woman gives last minute resistance, mystery counsels a man to just completely back off. So not even back off a little bit, but completely. If they're on the couch making out, go into the kitchen and make a sandwich. And he calls that the cat method, because it allows the woman to chase him instead, to make the decision about her desire for him and act on it. But this feminist decided that a man encountering token resistance and leaving, just being like, okay, well, I'm going to go make myself a sandwich, or I'm going to go watch a movie, or I'm going to go get myself a beer and do something completely different than paying attention to you, that constituted problematic. And as we all know, when the feminist says that something is constituting problematic consent, that means they're groping it towards rape. So a man even de-escalating a sexual encounter is starting to grope towards delegitimizing women's consent. So feminists, you got a lot of weird things going on when it comes to the idea of rape that are incompatible with a lot of people. So I'm not surprised that you might have mentioned some situation and these comics professionals, I assume is what they are, were like, oh, well, does that mean I were... But then what you should have done is you should have said, so has a woman ever done the same thing to you? Because no doubt you would have gotten, interestingly enough, you would have gotten an answer like, oh, does that mean I was raped? From a lot of men. If you apply the same criteria to men, you get a lot of men that you're applying to women. You'll get a lot of men saying, oh, so was I raped when my girlfriend put a gun to my head and said, "You'll service me or I'll blow your brains out." Does that mean I was raped? Yes. I'm sorry. I have a very dark sense of humor, so that was wry laughter. Anyway, so moving on. Emma Arnold says, yes, you did, but we don't know the details. I did ask for the details. I guess we're just going to be assuming that whatever she said was actually rape. And again, there's a lot of things under heaven and earth that feminists think are rape, and most normal people don't. All right, Cara S. says, pontificates, "It's weird that literally no guy knows the definition of rape until a female defines it. What the fuck?" Well, it seems to be your definition of rape is a bit of a moving target overall. You know, my definition of rape would be coercion, would be violence or threats of violence. I think that there are gray areas when it comes to verbal coercion and coercion by threats like, well, you won't get that part if you don't have sex with me and stuff like that. You know, that's more of a gray area in my opinion. But violence and threats of violence, pretty clear that a person who's receiving that has been raped. Okay? All right. I think that's clear for most people. Now, maybe there's some room for considering someone who persistently badgers another human being. Badgering actually referred to the act of putting badgers in a ring and having dogs attack them. So the badgering wasn't what the badgers were doing, it was what the dogs were doing to the badgers as they killed them. But regardless, you know, persistently badgering someone. But if it's not in the overall context of additional abuse, you know, it seems a bit questionable for me. But regardless, you know, it is a bit of a moving target, you have to admit. And since women are the only ones who get to define what rape is, for example, if a man says, you know, I think that I wouldn't have sexually consented to my wife if I knew my 3 children weren't mine, feminists don't consider that to be rape. So, you know, men don't really define it. Women do, and feminists define it, and it's a constantly moving target. So maybe give men a little bit of latitude, that they don't always know what it is today. They haven't got the weekly memo of what rape has expanded to be, the rapeflation numbers for the week, you know. Anyway, so I ended up talking to one of the followers of Carrie S. and Emma Arnold after minister at the Ministry of Leisure pointed out, newsflash, most guys aren't rapists. Now, unfortunately, I didn't take screenshots before this individual that I was responding to decided to put her Twitter account into self-imposed jail. This is something interesting that I've noticed lately with my interactions on Twitter, because I am situated in a position because of, you know, what I've built with Honey Badger Radio, which I'm very much appreciative to my followers and my supporters, because there's no way I wouldn't be in this position of being basically untouchable by the cancel culture without you guys. But because I'm untouchable, because they can't whip around and start attacking my employer, attacking people, my family or anything else, it's extremely difficult for them to do that. What I have noticed is that when I talk to a lot of these people, first of all, they don't fire back. There's something going on that's making them a lot more neutered somehow in their aggression. And also, they don't block me anymore, which was like a surprise to me. Instead, they run away into their own little prison. They're like, I'm not going to engage with you any further, and then clang, they shut their prison on themselves and go hide in their little safe space. And it's like, wow, that's a completely new behavior. I've never seen that before. Not only are they running from me, because that's what a blocked is, you know, it's like, block, I can't answer you, block, I want to have the last word, block, but it can't actually be a word, it has to be an action, because, you know, I know my parents never taught me the whole, use your words, don't hit, so I'm just going to block you because I can't respond to you. But instead, now, it's escalated to the point where I seem to be terrifying these people into their own little safe spaces, which, I wasn't really didn't do anything really. And you'll see, and like I said, I apologize, you can't see her responses. I'll have to tell you them from memory. Hopefully that'll be satisfying enough. And if you're on her approved list, I suppose you can go take a look at them. But, it's actually fairly easy to infer them from what I say in response. And also, feminists basically say the same things over and over and over again anyway, so it's not like you're missing out on much. All right, so what she said, and this is what I responded to. Newsflash, most men have a fucked up understanding of consent when it comes to women. And I simply just reversed the genders. So mine was, newsflash, most women have an even more fucked up understanding of consent when it comes to men. And I stand by that statement. Because a lot of women don't even think that men can say no. Not even to the point of accepting a no from men. They don't even think it's possible. And if a man says no, that's not even token resistance. It's just meaningless to women. It just does not compute. It's babble. So, and when you think about that level of inability to recognize men even having the capability of lack of consent to sex, it makes women's relationship with men's consent even more disturbing and horrifying than the reverse, because most men know women can be raped, right? You go, so pull like a whole bunch of random men, survey a whole bunch of, do the random phone number survey, call them up. Can a woman be raped? I bet it'll be really unlikely that you will get one single man to say, actually, no, I don't think women can be raped. I think it's impossible for women to be raped. That's just not something that happens. Have you ever tried to nail a dead fish to have you ever tried to nail a live fish to a board? Come on. It's pretty hard. So I don't think women can be raped, I don't think you're going to find any man answering the survey with that. I don't think you'll find any man who doesn't believe women can be raped. And in fact, if you find men who don't believe women can be raped, they probably think that rape is impossible, period. Okay? But let's do the reverse survey with women. Can men be raped? Oh, well, erection is a consent, right? And if I have to shove a Q-tip up his urethra in order to get an erection, that's consent too, right? Even if it shreds his urethra and he isn't able to pee properly for the rest of his life and can't have children, he consented to me, didn't he? This is the shit you'll find. You will find at least a significant minority of women cannot comprehend the idea that men can be raped. So yes, women's understanding of men's consent is more fucked up than the reverse. I think that so she tweeted some sort of horrified thing about, oh, what about the men's? What about the mensing? And I said, exactly. I bet you never even thought about it. The fact that they will present these things like, oh, men have this misunderstanding of women's consent. It's horrifying. A fucked up understanding of women's consent. And they've never considered the reverse. And when you point it out to them, they say something like, oh, they give you their patent knee-jerk responses or excuses like, oh, you're just, what about the menning? You're just, what about the men's, right? Well, you've already said, what are you comparing their men's fucked up understanding of women's consent to? There's only one thing you could be comparing it to, which would be women's fucked up understanding of men's consent, because, and of course, women's understanding of men's consent has to be perfect. And in their worldview, of course, it is perfect, because women are more empathetic. Therefore, men have no feelings whatsoever that women have to consider, because women are more empathetic. It makes perfect sense. Women have a perfect understanding of men's consent because men can't not consent to women. Thus, women have a perfect understanding of men's consent. See how that works? When everything is centered on women's moral conclusions. There you go. Ta-da! All right, and again, I apologize for not having her tweets. Okay, so that's I can't actually remember what happened in that little exchange. But I think what she said was that girls are taught, or no, what she said was, oh, we're going to teach boys to respect with girls' consent. That doesn't mean we're not teaching girls to respect men's consent. And I called her on it. I'm like, okay, how do you teach girls to respect men's consent? Okay. And of course she had no answer. And I added to that, in my entire life, I have never seen a campaign or class teaching women to respect men's consent. Even though many women believe horrific things like he's always consenting. And she called in one of her friends. And then in this particular tweet, I think you can probably infer what she said here from my response. I know this is a bit annoying to do, and I apologize. I didn't really think that she would run off into her own little walled garden. I thought she would just block me. But then again, I guess if she blocked me, I could just sign out of Twitter and see what she had said. I mean, what she said wasn't exactly that egregious. I don't know why she has to hide it from the rest of the world, but whatever. She essentially said, you know, what you're saying isn't going to make men respect me. And I'm like, okay, all right. Since you are an authority on what men respect, I asked her, what would make men respect me? And then she said something, well, I don't know. Like she doesn't actually know. She presents herself as an authority on what would make men respect me, and then she doesn't have any clue. And the answer is because she doesn't think there's anything, really, that can make men respect women. Anyway. And then she also added that I was shitting on women by entertaining the possibility that women rape men as much as men rape women. And I justified that by pointing out the last year's statistics from the Center of Disease Control's National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey. Now, last year is the most accurate measure of prevalence, so it's the one that you want to draw from to decide, you know, which is raped more if you have to. Like, if it's even relevant, which are raped more, men or women. And the fact is that both men and women reported the same level of rape and attempted rape. And quite a few of the men reported female rapists. So there you go. But she's like, because I sent her these statistics, she's like, wow, that I'm shitting on women. So is this shitting on men to assume that, I mean, if it's shitting on women to say that it's possible that equal number of women rape men, then what is it doing to men to say that the majority of rapists are men? Like, is that like hyper shitting on men? Are you opening up multiple anuses all over men? I don't know. Anyway. Okay. Anyways, she said something that, you know, the usual, once they have no answer, they start calling you a pick-me, a handmaiden, patriarchal handmaiden, a bootlicker, that kind of thing. They have a lot of words for women like me, apparently. Women beyond the pale. And, you know, you throw the first punch, I'm going to throw a punch back. You're so fucking helpless. Goddamn, it's like you don't exist outside of being some dude's pedboard. And she's like sputtering about me saying that. Again, probably amplifying this whole thing about me being a pick-me or a handmaiden. And I respond with, and yet here you are, handing over your agency like a slave. And because she didn't understand that, I explained it. Have you, in your entire life, questioned the idea that you have less ability to act in any particular situation than a man? Like, that's what's astounding about these women. They get presented with these orphan statistics, like so many women a year are raped. And they never say, before I adopt a victim identity as a woman, I would like to see the statistics on men. No, they're just like, give me that. Give me some of that victimhood. Let me rub it all over myself, feel so good. You know, it's like, and she basically said something along those lines again, probably calling me a pick-me again. And I responded with, in every conceivable circumstance, you believe that you have less ability to act than men. You never question this, and you call it empowerment. Welcome to the lifetime of being men's emotional slave, existing solely to construct a fantasy of their power. And, you know, I stand by that. If in every conceivable circumstance you turn yourself into a victim of men, every aspect of your life you turn yourself into a victim of men, instead of saying, how can I take action to better or to achieve my goal, better my life or achieve my goals right now, what do you become? What do you become but an illustration of men's power? And it's not real. Like, I didn't start my journey believing all of the things that I believe about the relationship between men and women, the statistics on domestic violence and rape, sexual assault, and the wage gap. I didn't start all this believing what I do now. I started actually closer to the feminist viewpoint. But being a naturally curious person and pig-headed, I started to investigate. And one by one, all of the pillars that held up this victimhood identity for me as a woman fell down. And I'm like, you know, shucks. I guess I don't have to conceive of myself as a victim in every conceivable circumstance. And in fact, actually, as all those pillars fell down, there was, at the end of that, there was sort of an identity of strength as a woman. Because women's voices, when it comes to moral matters and who belongs and who should be centered in terms of care and help, and whose vulnerability matters, actually carry a lot of weight, which is a great deal of power in society. And I talk to these women who consistently call me a handmaiden, a patriarchal handmaiden. But for what? Because I don't reduce myself down to a victim to be saved by men in every conceivable circumstance? Or I don't grant feminism power over my life? Like, frankly, I don't get it. I don't get how this is empowerment. And the more that I investigated for myself, the less that I got this, because this all crumbles as soon as you question it. So there must be something in this woman that makes her resonate with the idea of having less power, less strength to act, less ability than a man. There's something in her that resonates with that seeks it out and never questions it. And then she turns around and calls me, because in this entire framework, if you're constantly giving up your power to men in every situation, you can only ever be saved by them, by their actions. That's it. That's what you turn yourself into. And then she turns around and calls me the patriarchal handmaiden? Like, duh? Anyway, I didn't want to go too long today, so I figured I'd show you that. I don't know if there's a point putting the link to all of this in the low bar. But, and again, like when I came back, I was going to go to do this, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is going to be cool. I'll talk about this. And then I found out that she fucked off into her own little walled garden, which is certainly an act of strength, right? And it's like, I don't even understand this. I've had an argument with me. She has an argument with me, and then suddenly she can't be exposed to the world at all. Suddenly she's got to go hide. Well, that's certainly the act of somebody who feels powerful. God damn. Hot damn. Jesus. I'm starting to think this is all projection. So the moment that they start calling me a patriarchal pick-me handmaiden bootlicker, they're actually talking about the inside of their own skulls. And they're talking about the inside of their own skulls because they're faced with the exact opposite. Alright. See you guys in the next one. If you enjoy this content, share it around. Like, subscribe. Do the things. I think that helps the algorithm or something. I don't understand YouTube anymore, so. And if you like this content and you want to make sure that I'm able to make more of it, go to feedthebadger.com, start up a subscription. You can talk to me regularly in our patron-only Discord areas, and or you can just give us a one-time support. Really helps to be able to be independent and say whatever the hell I like. Thanks, and thank you for your kind.